Okay, I just want to start by thanking everyone for being here today. This is our first event that is put on by Center for Financial Wellness on building financial confidence education. And we've been doing this for a couple of years now. And the whole purpose is to empower you guys to take control of your finances, to build a secure finance for yourself, and also to encourage you to actually learn more about this topic. And today we have a panel of experts here. The title is called Navigating Uncertainty, Strategies for Financial Success. And our panelists are going to share their experience and their expertise. So hopefully that will inspire you as well to actually learn more about personal finance. And I'm just going to start by just introducing our moderator, Kirk, and then Kirk will be introducing the other panelists that we have here today. And so Kirk, right here, he's wearing the W. He is an advisor with Edward Jones. And Kirk boasts a distinguished career in investment spanning decades. I'm not sure how many decades, but decades, okay? And currently he serves as an executive in residence at the Milgard School of Business, and he's also on the advisory board for the Student Management Fund at the Center for Financial Wellness. He's a sought-after speaker and workshop leader, and Kirk has conducted numerous investment workshops for us, our students here at UT of Tacoma, guiding them through the fundamentals of investing. And he also will be leading that class again this academic year in February 2025. And so I'm just going to turn over the mic because I know they have a lot that they want to discuss. Okay, here you go, Kirk.
Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon, everyone. Harvard business researchers have reported that successful people ask for advice. I'll outline the process that leads one to obtaining helpful, insightful advice. First, start with a positive tone. So let me again welcome you to a day and a discussion entitled Navigating Uncertainty, Strategies for Financial Success. Secondly, you want to identify the type of advice one is seeking, and today we'll be discussing budgeting in uncertain times, emergency funds, debt management, investing for beginners, and a bonus question. And third, you have to ask the right people. We have two dynamite panelists today. First is Allie Kemp. Allie's the president and CFO of Financial Insights, a registered investment advisor who offers advice to clients on financial planning, retirement planning, legacy planning, and wealth management. She's a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. Allie was recognized by our industry's magazine, Investment News, as a member of the 40 Under 40. And as you heard, she serves the Milgard Business School as a Milgard Executive Council member. To her left, your right, is Don Clark. Don is the president and CEO of Sound Credit Union, the seventh largest credit union in Washington, which serves over 174,000 members and holds over $3 billion in assets. Don was recognized as the 2023 Business Leader of the Year at the University of Washington Tacoma's annual Business Leadership Awards. Don received his MBA here at the Milgard School of Business and serves the school as a member of the Milgard Executive Council. Clearly, we have a talented panel, and I want to hear from them as much as you do, so let me begin with the first question. Budgeting in uncertain times. Allie, Don, are there some key principles of savings and managing money that our students should know?
Okay, hi everybody, nice to be here. So key principles of saving and managing money. I think the most important thing that I'd want to start out with is diligence and consistency. A lot of times what I see is, okay, someday when I make this salary, I'll start saving. Someday when this happens, I'll start doing this. And I call it like the someday never type of situation. And when you start out with that mentality, even now, like someday I'm going to do this, someday I'm going to do that, chances are there's always going to be some reason as to why you're going to keep pushing that buck forward. So I just would start out by saying, now's the time to get started, even if it's $5 a week, $5 every 2 weeks, $20 every 2 weeks, just to get into the habit of starting to save into, whichever pots that you are designated. So you start now. There isn't a reason that it's someday you do it. I tell my mom this, she works at a grocery store, and why she works at a grocery store, she someday nevered her entire life. and she's in her 60s. So that was my one piece of advice to start out on is you start now. Start small, and it doesn't have to be $500 every 2 weeks when I make that salary. It can be $5 every week now.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you all. Like he mentioned, I did get my MBA here, which was a great school to get my MBA. I was probably the old one in the room, though. Got my MBA in 2014, so I was definitely the elder in the room here. But great school, great professors. It's great to be here to help and sort of talk about some of these things. I think as far as savings is concerned, I totally agree, Ali. That's starting young is probably one of the most important things. I know you probably feel like I can't afford to do this. I have, just to give you a frame of reference here, I have 6 children, and they age from 18, so one's in school right now, and all the way up to like 34. All right, so I've seen these kids, I still call them kids even though they're not kids, go through your stage, going to college, and then after that even, when they're in their late 20s and now early 30s. And all of my kids are very different. And some of them were really more smart, let's say. They probably wouldn't like to hear me say that, but some of them were smarter as far as their money than the other ones. And the ones that were smarter, who actually took care of their money and watched it and were careful in what they spent in terms of budgeting, putting aside a little bit of money every time they got paid, are doing much better today than the other ones. The ones who didn't do that, I can say, struggled financially and still sometimes struggle, okay, to even save anything. So when they have a flat tire or they need new brakes on their car, they're struggling, right? And I think it's safe to say, and there's a lot of statistics on this, but 60-some% of people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. Whatever comes in goes out. There is no savings. 40-some% struggle to meet a $400 emergency bill. So that could be one tire. I mean, tires are expensive. Maybe 2 tires if you need to put them on your car. So what do you do in that situation? We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But I think if you could put away money, maybe forego one of your Starbucks trips or one of your eating out trips, because eating out, and I've seen my kids blow a lot of money eating out. If you can put some of that away in a savings account and start building that, which is our next topic, the emergency fund, I think you're going to be a lot better off when that situation comes about.
Don, what a terrific segue to our next question on emergency funds. What is a realistic goal for college students or recent graduates to aim for when it comes to building an emergency fund?
So emergency fund is kind of daunting if you look at the textbook definition of what it should be, 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. I'd say to start out with, do you even know what your monthly living expenses are before your discretionary? Your discretionary meaning the Starbucks, the designer shoes, the things I see around the room that we're all buying for ourselves. Before all of those things, how much do you really need to live per month? How much is your rent? How much is your mortgage? How much are you eating per month if you weren't eating out every single night? And get at what is that number? And establishing that number now is going to be the most important thing you do to get started. Knowing what that number is, writing it down either in Excel, on a piece of paper, whatever works for you. Once you come up with that number, then understanding exactly how much you're bringing in, and now you know how much is going out, gives you an idea of how much you have left over. And from that difference of what you have left over, now you can decide how much are you spending on Starbucks shoes, how much are you putting into savings, etc. Emergency fund needs to be one of those buckets. So determining how much it should be, the ideal goal is 3 to 6 months of that living expense number that you've just established. But to start out, I would get that net of what you know is your guys' flush money that you're using for all your discretionary things, like your, nights out at the bar, your nice shoes, your Starbucks. You're spending that every week. Very few people are not doing some of that. Then some of that money needs to go to emergency fund every time you get paid. So I know I have $200 left over for the next 2 weeks to have fun with. I'm going to put this amount every single time into this emergency fund. My goal is the 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I totally agree. Where we see people get in trouble and then have to, unfortunately, rely on other forms of money, risk getting money, like different types of debt, which we'll get into, is when they don't have any savings at all, right? And then they're faced with the bill, and they have they don't know how they're going to pay for that. And so sometimes it's asking parents or family members, which a lot of us don't like to do that. So we try to do it on our own. And so what I see people do is they go to payday lenders and they, pay high fees for types of loans that really, if you just had, so I agree, 3 to 6 months, but if you have zero today, and this is where we're at, and that's where you're at today, then we're going to meet you where you're at today. I would say $50, okay? Get $50 in your savings account. Try that, okay? Start for that. And then once you get 50, go to 100. And then once you get 100, go to 150. Keep building your savings account so that when the emergency happens, whether you lose your job or whether you quit a job, here's something we see a lot. People come in and say, I can't make my car payment. Well, why can't you? Well, because I got a new job, but the new job is 2 weeks and I don't get paid for like a week or two after that, so I can't make the loan payment. Well, if you had an emergency fund to make that car payment, you wouldn't be in that situation where you'd have to go, because if you're 30 days late, now all of a sudden you have a delinquency on your credit report, and that's going to hurt you. And we're going to talk about credit reports here in a minute. So I would say start wherever you're at, try to get to 50, and then keep building that every month. Make it a goal every month that you put so much, even if it's $10. Okay, that's all you can do. I would encourage you to do that.
Great insight. Let me add something. I urge you to pay yourself first. And then that will come out of that discretionary income at the end of the week or the end of the month. And if you'll take the money out first, put it in your emergency fund, take it out first, put it in your retirement plan, then you're taking care of the most important asset you have, and that's yourself. So pay yourself first, and then you can spend what's left. The next question is on debt management. It's a great segue. How can students effectively manage student loans or credit card debt while still trying to accomplish their other financial goals?
How many of you have a loan of some type? Raise your hand. Just curious. Who? So some of you are debt-free. Okay, great. There is a place for loans. There is a place for debt in people's lives. There are certain things that you're most likely going to need debt. You're going to buy a house someday, you're probably going to have to use a mortgage, okay? Unless you build a company here and sell it, and you can pay cash for a house. Most people in this country will need some type of mortgage to buy a house. What I would say is, FICO scores are important. And all of you, I'm guessing, maybe not all of you, most of you have a FICO score. Some of you that don't have any debt, you're what we call a thin file, meaning you don't have any history of debt. We don't know how well you handle debt. We don't know if you actually make your payments on time or if you don't. So if you go to apply for a loan, we're not going to know that. We're not going to know how well do you pay your debt if we're going to lend you, $20,000 or $10,000 to buy a car or whatever. So what I would encourage you to do is start working on building your FICO score. Now, there's some very safe ways to do this and very smart ways to do this. And the not smart way is for you to accept a credit card offer from somebody and then charge it up. They gave you a $5,000 credit card and you charge it up all the way to go do all the fun things you wanted to do, and now you can't pay for it. Now you've just actually made your hole a lot bigger than what your intent was. So what I've told my kids, and I'll share with you, is a couple of strategies. Go to a financial institution and do what's called a shared secured credit card, okay? You're gonna have to have some funds. So let's say it's a small limit credit card, maybe $500. You're gonna have to have some funds. Maybe you can ask a family member to help you if you don't have the funds, or when you get the funds, once you save, then you will use the card and you'll immediately pay it off, okay? Use it, pay, and you're gonna start building your FICO score. That's a great way. If you can't do the shared secured, do a gas card. Use it for gas only. Just use it for small purchases and make sure you pay it off as soon as you use it or before you have to pay interest on it. You don't want to be paying interest on that, right? So that's just a small, simple strategy where you're going to start to build your FICO score so that when you actually need a loan for a car or whatever you're going to be purchasing, you're not going to have a thin file. Okay, you're going to have a file. You're going to have some debt on there, and they're going to see how you've acted. So I think even though I know you guys are probably aware of FICO scores because there's a lot of companies out there that will display, a lot of credit unions or banks that will display your FICO score. Really try to work. I can give you an example of a young man who came into one of our branches recently, and he was on a car loan. He had a car loan, and it was 26.5%. And the reason why it was 26.5% is because he had no credit, and so he was considered high risk. And so they sold him the car. But can you imagine paying 26.5% interest on a car? So he came into the branch asking for help, and they figured out they could do a shared secured visa. And over a period of time, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He actually raised his credit score from 600, which is 600 is a very low credit score, all the way up to 725. So we were able to refinance that car loan from 26.5 to 9 point something. It dropped his payment almost $200 a month, but the best thing was he's going to pay a lot less for the car.
Don, that says something about your credit union that your members feel comfortable to come in and ask for help. I'd urge you, if you get into it, so first off, if you get a credit card, and there are predatory credit cards. There are credit cards you're going to get in the mail, and they're going to make it very easy for you to get debt. That may not be the best for you. So ask someone their advice. Ask your professor, ask one of us. We're all here to help you. And then realize when you make a charge, it's very exciting because you give nothing. They just give you the stuff and whatever you're buying and you leave. But a bill is going to come at the end of the month. You have to watch the mail because that bill will come and you have to pay the bill. And you have to pay it on time. And if you get in trouble, if you get behind, ask someone for help. Again, I think it speaks volumes that people feel about Sound Credit Union as a partner in their financial life. But you'll have friends, you'll have family members, you'll have us here at the university. Ask for help. I'm in a situation, tell them, I don't know what to do, but don't ignore it. Don, isn't that the worst thing a person can do?
Yeah. What I would say is if you're in a situation now, or if you ever get in a situation where you have a loan and you can't make the payment, what I always tell, don't run and hide. Okay? Do not bury your head in the sand thinking the problem's going to go away. The problem will not go away. It's either going to be the institution that's going to keep hounding you, calling you for that payment, or it's going to be sold to a collecting agency and they're going to be hounding. It is a very stressful situation, okay? We have many members that find themselves in this situation. And what I always say is just if you have an issue with making a payment, call your financial institution. Don't hide. And then make a plan with them because they will work with you. Most institutions will work with you. If you explain to them, hey, I lost my job. I'm looking for a new job. I really can't make that payment. Like some of the things that institutions will do, like ours, is they'll do a skip a pay. We'll let you skip a payment on that car loan. We'll let, maybe a couple skip a pays, depending on what's going on in your life. The worst thing you can do is try to hide because it's going to catch up with you. So make a plan, and whatever that plan is, don't make a plan that you can't afford. So really make sure that you see how much money am I making, how much am I spending, how much can I really make on payment, and then do that. And if you do that, man, you're going to earn bonus points with that institution. If you ever find yourself in that situation again, they're going to see that because all this stuff is in notes, right? They have a history. They're going to work with you again. They know that you're good for your word. And I think that's important. If you hide and whatnot and you try to, avoid them and this and that, they're not going to have a lot of confidence in you in terms of paying you back. And that, it's best that you just step up and own it and agree to a plan and then do it.
Can I just add a quick story? So I'm the CEO of a financial institution. Now I'm 40. When I was 19, I was debt-ridden and being sent to collections. I had $1,000 maxed out at Nordstrom's. I had a Bank of America card maxed out at $2,000. I was, getting sent to collections with a horrible credit score. That's where I was. Not to mention I was overwhelmed by it all because I had so many debts that I couldn't look at it because it gave me so much anxiety, so I would just ignore it. But what I learned was a loophole. If you pay $5 or $10 on a bill at a medical institution or on it, they can't send you to collections if you make a payment. It doesn't have to be the full payment. And once I figured that out, as embarrassing as it was to call the doctor's office and say, I'm going to make a $10 payment on my $500 bill, they couldn't send me to collections because I made a little payment. And so that alone saved me. And that's how I started building my credit back. Because once I figured that out, I was like, cool, I got this $100 every 2 weeks or whatever I can do. I'm going to do $10 on this, $20 on this, $30 on this. And it was not overwhelming because, to Dawn's point, I came up with a plan. And that plan got me through paying all of that off. And then I started tracking that credit score and getting those credit reports every year. And then by the time I started working for a financial institution, I started at the front desk, I'd already started seeing it go up. And by the time I was going to get my CFP, I was like, well, I need to have really good credit if I'm going to teach people about planning. But that's where it started. And it started with just calling up and embarrassingly making these tiny payments. And I did feel kind of stupid saying I could only pay $20, but hey, I didn't get sent to collections, which means my credit score is getting better. So that's my little tidbit.
Cost of ignoring that. If you get repossessed, there's a cost to that.
Yeah. So if you have a car loan and obviously if you owe $10,000 and you can't make the payment and they come and they repossess your car, well, all the costs involved in repossession, all that gets added onto your loan. So even if the loan, you end up, walking away from the loan and never making a payment, you're still going to be at default for your original loan plus all the costs on top of that. And somebody can come and garnish your wages and try to collect on that, even though you've stopped making payment. So the good news is if you just make your payments or call them and ask for help if you need help, try to never to get in that situation and that only usually happens when the person never calls back. They don't call back. They never connect with the institution. They never respond to phone calls. And so then the institution basically is like, well, we have to protect our asset. They go and pop your car. Now you have no car. You can't, if you need your car to get to work, it just makes it a lot worse. Okay. The other thing that I would say is, both of you kind of mentioned this, pay yourself first, have the emergency fund, because what you're trying to avoid is some of these other fees that, overdrawn account fees. That's when you have X amount of money and you go and you swipe your debit card for more money than what you have in your account. Really, in today's age, there's really no reason to do that because you have a mobile app. Most institutions have a mobile app. You can see exactly how much is in your account before you swipe your card, right? And if you swipe your card knowing that you're going to go in overdraft, knowing that your credit union or bank is going to go ahead and honor that but charge you $25 for that, that's a very expensive transaction. And if you do that multiple times a month, and by the way, we've seen members have hundreds of dollars a month in those types of fees. Very expensive. You go to Jimmy John's and you paid what's a Jimmy John's sandwich today? $12-15 for a sandwich, and you didn't have that in your account, so you swiped your debit card anyways, and the money went through. Oh yes, but that sandwich now is $15 plus $25. That was a $40 sandwich, right? I would avoid those as much as you possibly can. I would try not to use that service that institutions provide as an extra paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Don't look at it as extra money that you have to spend because it's a very, very expensive. I'd rather you have a little money in your savings to help put in your checking account so that you can buy yourself a sandwich. Or better yet, go home and make yourself a $1 sandwich instead of paying $15, right? If you don't have the money in your account. That obviously the smartest thing is feed yourself from grocery store food, which is a lot cheaper than always eating out. That can get very expensive, especially if your budget, you have a limited budget.
And no, we all have lived on top ramen when we were students. We all do. And so if you are eating that and you think, oh, I'm not making it, I can't get ahead, you're on the right track. You know how I know you're on the right track? You're here today. So let's talk about investing. What types of investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, are ideal for someone just starting out?
Normally when I have like children of clients, grandchildren of clients that are just starting out, normally what I will recommend, and these are adult children in a lot of cases, who could be 40 or 50 years old. But if they're starting out, I make sure that they, number one, take advantage of their employer-sponsored retirement plan. If your employer sponsors a retirement plan and you're not utilizing it, then you're kind of missing out. Especially if you're not putting in at least what they might match. That's free money you're leaving on the table. So if you guys aren't doing it and you're not taking advantage of the match, come find me. I'll put my money in and I will take your match because you're leaving free money on the table that they're trying to give you. So let's not do that. Let's figure out what is the match. If there's no match at all, then it's still a great pre-tax way to get money in. So that would be my first thing to start doing. If you do not have that, then I would go to Vanguard or some free online investing company and open up a Roth IRA or an IRA, depending on your tax situation, and start saving auto pay monthly into that retirement account. And what I would invest in to start out is probably a target fund. I say Vanguard because they've got low expense target funds that are, some of the lowest cost in the industry. So that's kind of where I'd like to start. I wouldn't say open a Robinhood and put your money in crypto and AI. Like, that's not where we're starting. We need our base first. And the base is going to be your core long-term investment pot, which if you don't know anything about investing, then I'd start with the target fund. Choose one that's farther out if you're younger. That's going to have more in the stock market. And in that target fund, you're owning Apple and Nvidia and, all these, companies are in there. And if you want to dig into them, you can dig into what's inside of it and take a look because you actually are stock investing. You're just not choosing the stocks. So that would kind of be the way I would start.
Yeah, I love the suggestion on 401k plan. I don't know how many of you actually you're going to school now. I don't know if you're working and you have ability, but as soon as you do, please take advantage of that. Like for example, where I work, for the first 4% of anything our employees put in, we match up to 100% of that, up to 4%. So there's 8% of your money, and then we do a bonus discretion at the end of the year, which is up to 5%. So you could be saving up to 13% of your money if you take advantage of it. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do this. And it doesn't make any sense because you're putting in, if you're making, $1,000, you're putting in 4%, and we're going to give you another 4% in that account. And people are not taking advantage of that. And it's a lot of times that's younger people. And I don't know if it's because they just don't understand it or you don't feel like you could live without that 4%. But I recently heard, and maybe you too, because you're investment advisors, that you save so much earning even the 7 to 10%. When you start young, by the time you're 60, that could be, have you seen that example? Like $1 million. Like $1 million. I have, every quarter I get a report of all the 401k, of all the participants in our 401k plan. And every once in a while I go through just to look and just to familiarize myself with what's happening in the plan, the growth and so forth. And I'll see participants that have been working for us for a while and they have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in this 401k plan. And then I'll see others who've been working for us and they have $42,000. And I'm like, wow, they just gave up on all that free money. They could have been at the same. So I think that's smart. The 401k.
Yeah. And then just to make a second note on that 401k, my initial target's 10% of your salary. You can try to start that even when you make $45,000 a year right away. And then every time you get a raise, bump that up. That would be my target. I feel like everybody can do 10% and you get used to it within a month. I mean, honestly, once you get used to that net amount, you don't even notice you're saving. And then the goal is to max out as early as possible. And I think right when you make around $75,000 a year, you can probably rent a place and max out your 401k. I think there's definitely a threshold to where, unless you're living with your parents, you probably can't still make your bills and max out. Does anyone know the concept of time value of money? Anyone? We got a few people that understand it. Okay, cool. So time value of money, just to simplify it in very layman's terms, is the earlier you start putting money into your savings pot, your 401k, the less you actually have to save over time. So if you someday I'm going to do it, someday I'm going to raise it, someday I'm going to max out, you actually have to save more over time than if you started. I've got clients that are 50 or 60 years old struggling to max out, and maxing out is not going to save them enough to live off in retirement based on their standard of living. But if they started maxing out when they were 30 and they just kind of inched up to where they did it, then they're totally comfortable when they, need to retire, and they had to save less over time because that money is growing and compounding with interest or, stock market growth until retirement. So there's some really good graphs online. Google time value of money, play around with the calculator. But what it's going to tell you is, hey, if I start early, I'm going to have more money later, and I'm going to actually have to save less money, which actually means you get to spend more in your lifetime. You get to have more fun. You get to go on more vacations. It's counterintuitive to what you're thinking, but it's a very valuable concept that should be taught to everybody in high school, and we should all know it.
Great. Just a shameless plug. In the winter, I'll be teaching a class on how to make money in the stock market. Normally, we do it in this classroom. It'll be 4 sessions, 2 hours a session. If Sally's nice enough, she'll bring us all lunch. And we're going to get into all of these concepts, specifically about the stock market, mutual funds, ETFs, exchange-traded funds, 401k plans, all of those things. So watch for that, and I look forward to seeing you there. Many people, especially young people, feel pressured to jump into risky investments. How can our students balance the desire to get involved in things such as crypto and meme stocks with balancing that with the need for caution?
If you're interested in that kind of thing, I'd say go for it. Start out your Roth, start out your IRA, start your 401k, put most of your savings there. And if you just can't help yourself, you need to be able to participate in fun things. I've had a Robinhood account as long as Robinhood's been an app. It's free. You can download it. Scale wise, it's probably like 1/100th of my overall savings. But every time I see a stock I like, I might go in there and buy one share of it. In no way is it a majority of my savings. It's a tiny little piece. It shouldn't be where you're trying to save your future dollars. It should be kind of an add-on. And for most people, it's probably not appropriate, because if you have an issue with gambling, or if you feel like you want to participate in it more than just a tiny amount, then typically you're going to make bad decisions and lose money, and it's going to hurt you more than it will benefit you. So I'd say it's only a strategy for people that can be very mindful with, okay, I'm putting $500 into my 401k. I'm going to take $10 and put it over here into crypto because I just want to have fun. Fun money is the key word for something risky. It is not where your core savings is. And then, once you start early, do time value of money, and then someday you have $3 million because you were an entrepreneur on the side as well. Well, you have a lot more money to take on more risk, and clients that are larger do a lot more risky investments, but you kind of have to earn that in the future. It's not something you should be starting out with, if that makes sense. You kind of do it with money you might not need. So we don't actually recommend doing anything risky in any big way for quite a while. But I do think that younger people really want to participate. So I'm not going to say nothing, but it should be just kind of small.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think if you could have, $400, $500, $600 or whatever in a savings account, or you can move to your checking when you're low, when you have an emergency or hiccup or something, and then you're contributing to your 401k, and you're having maybe something online through Fidelity or Vanguard, you're putting $10, $25, whatever, you're starting to build a nest egg there. Then I think, if you have extra money, like I call it, like first thing came to my mind was fun money, is fun money. And I have fun money in crypto, but very, very little also compared to, because I feel like there's other places to put money that are more valuable than crypto. Crypto is high risk. there's a lot of fraud and a lot of things happening in crypto space. I work hard for my money. I don't want to just put it out there and lose it that easy. So I would rather put money in different types of investments, real estate, other things. Someday when you have money, you may rethink the crypto. You may think, maybe I can earn more value somewhere else that's less risky. But I have kids, like I said, and I know all of them. One of my sons, unfortunately, he passed away 3.5 years ago, and he's 24, and he had crypto. When I was kind of unwinding his situation, his business accounts and things, he had money in Dogecoin or whatever, however you say that. Did I say that right? What? Dogecoin, whatever. It's one of these cryptocurrencies. He didn't have a lot of money, and it shocked me that he even had money in there. I was like, well, I guess it's a thing. I know it's a thing. Young people are excited. They hear about people making millions and millions of dollars in crypto. A lot of these, by the time we get into it, that's gone. Like the opportunity was way back when you got into it early. And a lot of people don't, have an opportunity to make those multi-millions of dollars. I'm not saying people don't, but it's just, it is pretty rare when you look at the general population. So I would favor, if you want to consider yourself, building wealth, I would be more conservative than trying to put all my eggs in the crypto basket.
So I always tell people, take the money that you would take to Las Vegas and use that, because that's money you're willing to lose, right? And then go to Vegas, because they'll give you a drink. All right. You're going to get something for nothing. But let's do this. Let's open it up for questions. Want to let you know this is being recorded. So we'll repeat the question, but if you'll just stand up, say the question nice and loud so we can hear it. We'll repeat it for the benefit of the audience that's watching us, and then we'll answer your questions. Questions? Yes, in the back.
So I see that this whole thing is about navigating uncertainty. So one of the things that I see as uncertainty is the concept of loss at adverse, where essentially you have a job that you don't like, but you're afraid to quit because whatever reason, you're not going to have enough money, you're not going to be able to survive, you're worried that you won't be able to pay off your loans, all that kind of stuff. And say you're in a situation where your emergency funds might not get you through as healthily as well. How would you navigate that uncertainty? Do you have any advice? Do you have any thoughts or opinions on something where you just don't know how you're trying to get yourself into a place where you're happy?
Yep. So the question is, if you have a job and you don't like it, but you can't afford to quit because you have a situation at home. You've got debt, you've got school, you've got expenses, you've got rent. What can you do to put yourself in a better position?
So this is something that my kids would probably say to you if they were here, because they've heard it many, many, many times from me. What I would tell you is what not to do. Don't quit your job before you have another job. And I've seen some of my kids do this, where they're either unhappy, they don't like their boss, they got upset, their boss did this, did that, and they, on a sort of volatile sort of way, they just quit. And they have no job to go to. And they still have debt, they still have to eat, they still need to pay rent. And it's like, why'd you do that? If you didn't like it, find another job. I don't think you should stay in a job if you don't like it. In fact, I encourage my employees, if you have a better opportunity or you want to do something else, you want to change your career, you should do that. But don't quit before you find that. I think that is, if there's, and I've seen a lot of people do this, where they don't think about the financial impact in quitting before they have another salary. And don't forget also, there's a time delay between when you quit and when you start getting paid. Take that into consideration.
I'm going to be kind of old school answering this question, but I employ 15 people, and I look at a lot of resumes, and I will say when there's a lot of job jumping, I sometimes screen those resumes out, regardless of what the job is. And what I'm noticing a trend recently is there is a lot of job jumping because I think people are unhappy, or maybe the remote policies and what they want, or, it's not perfect, right? And then they're leaving. So I think that there is a little bit of leaving maybe jobs that they need to build as that foundation for their future dream job, and they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing too much job jumping. And a lot of employers are not going to value, a bunch of 1-year stints. So I think sometimes, and I might take a different opinion, I think sometimes maybe you do need to be in a job that is not perfect for you for a while to establish your resume properly. I can't tell you, I started at the front desk where I'm at. I own the business now, and I can't tell you how many people I worked under to get to where I'm at, to where I kept saying, eye on the prize, eye on the prize. Okay, I don't want to be here, but I see where I'm going. And it was so valuable. I've been uncomfortable and unhappy with my salary. I've been unhappy with managers, but you need to know where you want to go. And where you want to go is you're not going to get there probably when you're 21. It's probably going to be when you're 30 or over. So you got to maybe pay your dues a little bit. And I think that's what this generation is kind of losing, is they think that they're going to get in this perfect dream job right now. And that's not necessarily the case. I think sometimes you do have to kind of work to get where you want. And sometimes that's resume building. Sometimes it's a means to an end. Like, I'm going to work here for 3 years. Set yourself a parameter. I hate this job, but I'm going to do 3 years. So then I at least have that on my resume of this 3-year stint. And so maybe that's slightly different, but that's what I'd say. Oh, sorry. I thought you were grabbing it.
No. Maybe done. Sorry.
Are we done?
No, are you done?
I am done.
I want to add to you.
Oh, please. I was
Because
it.
because I'm not suggesting you should just job hop. I'm just saying that is not a good thing, because I look at resumes as well, and if I see someone's like here, you have 3 jobs in the last year or 3 jobs in the last 3 years, that's sort of a red flag. Like, why is this person moving from here to here to here? You don't know if that's because they just didn't like the job, or if they got pushed out or asked to leave. You just don't know. And so you're creating this doubt that you don't really need to create. And I agree. There's this thing called staying power. And we like to see people that have staying power, because not everything's going to be fun and happy every day at a job. It's a job. Trust me, I would rather do a lot of other things than go to work, okay? A lot of things. There's a lot more fun things than work. Now, I can say I enjoy my job, and I've had many jobs that I've enjoyed, but if they stopped paying me, I wouldn't be going there. I would be going to play golf or something fun, right? So a job is a job at the end of the day, and I agree. Staying power is very important. You try to stick it out. Try to work through it. Try to get a few years there, before you leave. But if you end up having to leave early, like within a year, you really should have a good reason for that you can clearly articulate to whoever's interviewing for the next job.
We have a saying in our family, and that's bloom where you're planted. Try to make the best out of the situation. And remember that an employer is going to invest in you. And when they go to hire the next person, the question is, who is the best person for me to invest in? So you have to give them that reason. Next question. Yes.
My boy is 19 and he's sophomore year in college. So as a father, how to introduce wants and needs concept to him and ask him every dollar before using, think about it.
Okay, so we have a 19-year-old sophomore. And how best is it, and we'll use it for whether you're introducing it to him or whether you're introducing it to yourself, this idea of wants and needs and the difference. And then in what order should you put them?
Old school here.
Oh, I am old school. Because I would flip that. Maybe I have a 10-month-old. Maybe I'm going to be a domineering parent. Probably my husband would probably say that. Controlling. So I think I would set some standards for my child. And again, probably too firm. But I think I'd say contributing to the 401k is a need and it's a non-negotiable. And you're doing it. And that's kind of how I'd probably phrase that. I don't think it should be something that is, an option. So the needs are your housing. You need a roof over your head. Do you need to live in the nicest part of town? Probably not. So maybe there's some negotiation on, well, we don't want you in an unsafe part of town, but we also don't need you in the nicest apartment. So maybe the need is we need a roof over our head in a safe area. Then food is a need. Do we need to go out to eat every day? Probably not, but we need to eat. So again, it's that negotiation, how much is the budget for food? Well, it's not so much that you could go out to eat every day, but it's not so little that you have to go to the food bank. And I was on food stamps in college, maybe by necessity, but maybe there is a little bit of not giving the child so much that they have to work for it, because that made me very resilient. When you have to go get bread in a public place, it does something to a person. It makes you value things in a way that maybe you wouldn't if everything was always given to you. So, food's a need, but how much food, how nice food, that is a need. And then, I think cell phones a need for communication, computers, etc. But when you get beyond that, a lot of the stuff is wants. You don't need new shoes every 3 months. You don't need 50 t-shirts. So I think then you start establishing what are the wants. And usually it's discretionary clothing. It's going out to eat a ton with your friends. And then you kind of create that want bucket. So that's kind of how I would structure it with my kids. And then I'd probably only participate not 100% in the needs. I'd want them to have some skin in the game and I'm a proponent of either work study or at least a smart part-time job to take care of some of the needs themselves, so that there's, not just giving everything to someone.
Yeah, it's tough because everyone's different, right? Everyone has different opinions, different thoughts, different backgrounds, where you came from, how you're raised. Everybody has this book on their head that's based on their life's history and story, and your needs may be different than your needs and wants, and everyone has this different thing. So what I, like I said, my kids, sometimes they would do things that I'm like, well, I know you just, asked for some money, but yet now you're going to a concert. And I'm thinking, now, did I help pay for that concert? I'm willing to help with your needs, but that seems like a want. So, you got people asking questions. And so to me, it comes down to, what can you afford? Whether it's a need or a want, what can you afford? How much money are you making? How much are you spending for rent? How much are you spending for your food? How much are you spending for the bus fare? How much are you spending on gas a month? Like, I've asked my kids, hey, like my daughter who's just 18, I asked her when she was in high school, hey, how much are you spending in gas a month? And guess what her answer was? I don't know. I said, well, look, let me show you how you could figure this out. So we opened up the mobile app. We went to there. We looked, and you can sort by categories. A lot of institutions have a budgeting tool where you can assign a category for each expense. So each gas, you assign gas, transportation. Yeah, eating out, there's an entertainment, there's all these different categories. And so I said, oh, looks like you're spending about $70 a month in gas. Well, that was interesting. Now all of a sudden she's got some power because she has some knowledge. I wonder if your son knows how much he's spending in this. How about eating out? So I asked her, how much you spending eating out, you think? And she's like, oh, Dad, don't ask me that, because eating out is like a big thing now, right? It wasn't when we were younger, but now it's like everybody eats out, whether it's the coffee bill, whatever it is. I would say, if look into whoever you do banking with, look at the tools that they have, see if they have a budgeting tool, and start categorizing your expenses by what they are. Okay, groceries, eating out. And they're two different things, groceries and eating out. Even though it's food, I would categorize them separately. Gas, rent, whatever it is, and start managing that. Start looking at that every month and understanding where you're spending your money, okay? Because I think that'll help you when it comes down to deciding what you're gonna do or not do, whether it's a want or a need. At least you're gonna be living within your budget. And I think that's important.
Great. I mentioned that we were going to have a bonus question. And this question is for these two esteemed panelists. And by the way, help me thank them for being here today. If you have one piece of advice for our students, what is it?
There's never a reason to take an early distribution from your retirement account, ever.
Wow. I was going to drop the mic there, but I don't want to break this mic. I'm not quite sure what she's saying is when you start investing in a 401k, you can take an early distribution just because you want the money, right? Or you think you need to go on a trip somewhere and I'll just take it.
You have a flat tire.
Or you have a flat tire. because you pay a penalty, and it's just not a smart thing. So use that emergency fund that you guys started saving today. You're going to start today, right? Saving some money, so you don't ever have to do that. But my piece of advice would be, and this is another thing my kids would probably throw out there, is if you don't take care of your money, no one else will, period. If you don't take care of your money, no one's going to do that for you. In fact, they're just going to want to take more of it if they can. Okay? So there's a lot of situations that happen in life, whether you're, doing business with somebody, these subscriptions that you subscribe to, you think they're going to, Netflix or someone's going to come back and say, hey, guess what? You're paying for this, but you're not using it. They're not going to do that. They're just going to keep taking your money. So you have to know where your money is going, and you have to take care of it yourself, because nobody will do that for you.
Oh, can I add one more thing? Sorry, my mic drop moment. Have you heard the term slow is fast? Okay, so small is big with saving. If you think about it that way, small is big. You start small, and later you're going to have something big. You're not going to later somehow have something big. So small is big.
Great, and let me close with this. I spoke at the Success Conference 2 weeks ago, and I wrote down my suggestions for how to be successful. It goes back to, if I have a job I don't like, if I want to do something different, what is the lessons that I've learned in the time that I've had in working. They are up here on the front. If you are interested in what my comments were, please take those. Thank you so much, Allie, Don, for being here. Professor, thank you. I'll turn it to you.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today. We do have other events scheduled out throughout this quarter, as actually throughout the whole academic year. But if I could just put my 2 cents in about changing jobs, how you leave your job is very, very important, just as how you start as well too. Because in your career, you're gonna find out that whoever that you knew at your previous position, they may actually, have a position for you later. I mean, it's all part of networking. And so always keep that in mind. I mean, I know like we might actually fantasize about saying like, I quit because you are blah, blah, blah. Don't do things like that, because it's very important how you leave a position. So thank you for being here today. And I also thank Kirk, Allie, and Don for being here. They are very busy, and I really appreciate the time that you took to be here today. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.